the guru of Squad Double Zero, the assassin like no other. Yes, I'm the best at what I do. One of the most notorious in the YouTube anime manga community. Yes, please don't doubt the infamy. The infamy is real. Now, I am back from my brief hiatus. Things happen in life. Sometimes you need time to recharge, refocus, and other things occur. And this video was supposed to come out months ago, but I'm kind of glad it didn't. It didn't feel right. So let me tell you what happened. Right. So I came up with this idea. I don't know if I was the first one, but my own pirate crew. Now I already did a while back how I would be in the One Piece world. I've done a few how I would be, and I need to continue those. But anyways, I mentioned specifically about devil fruit and whatever, and I will expound upon that. But the thing is, I had come up with, the crewmates, kind of a skeleton. It did take me like 20-30 minutes to come up with it because I did go in depth. But then several individuals began in groups recently within the last week or so, coming up with, I'm talking about Facebook groups and probably otherwise, their own power crews. And I gotta give it to Speak and Moose specifically. I'm pretty sure they're gonna watch this video. They began doing names and origins, okay, and going more in depth with specifically their devil crew abilities and whatever. So now they forced me to go back. Now I had bounties and everything, right? But now they forced me to go back and name things. And as I was doing the work this morning, I was thinking, of origin stories as well. And I don't just give you little tidbits. I go in deep in how everything ties in together. And a typical Ichiro Oda style tying together, right? Now, let's begin with my One Piece crew, the captain. Now, my captain is... Alright, hold on. Got everything written down because this goes in deep, right? Captain Daniel Barrow. Daniel Barrow. Not Burrow. Barrow. Okay? Like in England, Britain, the kind of mound things. Okay? With the epithet dangerous. So dangerous, Daniel Barrow. Okay? I will get more into the bounties later. But his ability is the Hollow no Mi. I will explain that. He fights with a cane, an actual cane. Okay? And he has all forms of Haki, including especially Conqueror's Haki. Makes perfect sense, right? Now, the Hollow no Mi. This is not like Bleach, for you Bleach fans. This isn't like the Hollows, okay? No, we ain't talking Grimmjow and Harry Bell and all them fuck. No. We're not talking about them. We're not talking about what's his what's his face? The King of the Hollows. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyways, the Hollow no Mi, as I explained in my how I would be in the One Piece world, is the ability where literally the inside of your bones are hollow. Okay? Strange as that is, but what it would allow is that you be very, very light. It would allow to be actually pretty strong because you could fill with air, water, whatever. It would allow for those abilities to be very light, be very fast, strike very hard, very, very hard. Okay, and it would also allow to be able to run on water, kind of like Brook does. It would be able to allow almost like you're flying. This is obviously a paramecia ability. Okay, it'd be almost where you could jump like super jumps, and you could float in the air almost like you were flying. So I'd be able, whether it be terrestrial, which is land battle, aquatic, sea battle, to some degree. Obviously, if I fall in the water, devil fruit, I sink. My captain sinks. And as well as aerial warfare, aerial battle, aerial combat. Okay, this is devastating. All right, so Conqueror's Haki, a lot of armaments hockey, and some observation hockey to throw on top of it. Now, Daniel Barrow, the origin of Daniel Barrow. His origin, his actual birthplace is unknown. Okay, don't know where he comes from. But while he was young, he's very nomadic. He was a runaway, not necessarily an orphan, just a runaway. No one knows, only he knows where he comes from. And he will not disclose that information for anything, for a lot of reasons, mainly to protect his younger siblings. Now, by the age of 17, he would jump ship to ship. First he was a stowaway, and then he would eventually get work from here to there, island to island, ship to ship. Eventually he came into a group under one of the Shichibukai, okay? And as since the group was affiliated, allied with one of the warlords under the privateer exemption, it was able to do a lot of secret piracy. The thing about it is, after 2 weeks of hardcore looting and whatnot, looting, pillaging, the crew was not getting paid properly or at all, almost, by the captain of that vessel. So, as mutiny was about to rise that night, Daniel decided to leave the ship. Okay, he took the rowboat and said deuces. He went undetected because of all the commotion that took place. Because you got to understand that the captain wasn't alone; he did have followers backing him. Whatever happened to their vessel, he knows not of, nor does he care about, because it was small time. He went and he kind of journeyed out into the West Pole. At that time, it was in the North Pole. You could say, well, how is it in the Shichibukai? There was things he did not know about nor cared about. It went from paradise all the way to the North Blue in order to raid in more safety. That was the purpose of the voyage, and he didn't really care about all the details. He went out to the West Blue, and far, far to the West Blue. At this time, this is 5 years before Luffy sets out. Okay, sets out to sail the seas as a pirate. By that time, he met his first mate. Okay, and in comes our intro into first mate Ashim. His epithet is the wise. Now Ashim is blind. He's a blind man, but he's not a swordsman. He's not a blind swordsman. He is an Admiral Fujitora Isho. No, he is a bow user. And for those who don't know what a bow user is, a certain form of staff. Okay, and he is also a guru. He's lived. Alright, I'll explain more about his backstory momentarily. He is also a conqueror's hockey user, so he has all three forms of hockey. Okay, he clearly has quite a bit of mastery in observation hockey. His mastery in armaments hockey is fairly low too, but he does focus on conqueror's hockey. Now, the backstory behind him is shrouded in mystery. What is known about Ashim is he does originate from somewhere in the New World. Why he left the New World is unknown. Okay, much of it is because an accident happened to him when he was young that caused quite a bit of amnesia when it comes to certain memories. So it's kind of like a Wolverine. For those who are Marvel fans know what I'm talking about. He forgot much of his past life. So he went out to the West Blue since it was safer for him as he grew up. And he did a lot of training and a lot of honing of his abilities. He would often be involved in a lot of fights because his accident caused him to have, what we would call multiple personality disorder. They didn't know what to do. Now, because of this, it proved that he had to do a lot of focus and a lot of mental training, and it made him a lot stronger, and he did a lot of meditation, a lot of things, a lot of spiritual quests and whatnot. And what allowed for him is to become a better combatant. But he knew how lethal and dangerous he was, and he didn't want to attract too much attention from the government. But lo and behold, someone ratted him out from where he was, and the government would come after him. The Marines. And the Marines sent, and he did quite a bit of damage, and he became a fugitive. So he went way, way out west to where no one could really find him. Although how Daniel found him was quite interesting, because as he was traveling westward, we heard about, this legend of this blind man who was lethal. How he became blind was during his battle with the Marines. He had to do whatever was possible, and he took some slashes to the face. And instead of just living with one eye and messing it up, he ended up bashing his other eye in so that he would be totally blind, and so he could focus and gain even more enlightenment. So he went out west, and he focused upon himself, and he gained quite a bit of knowledge about the world and understanding about the world during his life and his travels, and began to contemplate a lot of things about life. Now, by the time Daniel comes, he comes and he sits with them actually for a week, and then they began to have a conversation, and Daniel talks about trying to figure out what he wants in life, and he says, "You sound like you want to wreak havoc. Why?" Daniel says, very simply, "I want to shake up the world because the world is corrupt." And Hashim says, "How is the best way you want to do it?" And Daniel says, "Piracy. I've seen it." Hashim's like, "I'm already a fugitive anyway. I'll be there to guide you and help you whenever you need." And so they form a bond and they set sail. Hashim, that's the kind of backstory behind Hashim. Now we move on to Sniper. Sure shot Thomas Mallow. Yes, Thomas Mallow. This man has a custom rifle which allows for great distances to be covered and much accuracy. Not that he really needs it, because his eyesight is beyond 2020 easily. It's something like 2015. Not only that, he is a master of observation hockey. He has his observation hockey range is 4 miles. He can clearly see things away. His armament hockey is legit enough to where he can affect low gear users. And he also is the third and final crewmate to have Conqueror's hockey. Now, the thing about him is, Mr. Mallow, he's been a marksman ever since he was young. He would often do target practice for forms of archery, slingshots, you name it, throwing things. He was very adventurous. He comes from a pretty well-off family, but the thing is, his family fell into hard times. And with the threat of being thrown into a debtor's prison, Thomas strikes down the man that would put his family in danger. But in doing so, Thomas had to go. He had to flee the island. And so Thomas has been on his own since the age of 14. And so for 10 years, this dude has been wreaking quite a bit of havoc. The Marines never can seem to catch him, and when they catch him, bodies drop. And then he would go from island to island. As fate would have it, he would meet up with Daniel and Hashim with the pressure of the Marines getting ready to send a vice admiral after him. And alone, he's worried about it. He's hearing reports of this vice admiral coming his way. And Hashim and Daniel are like, "Yo, Why don't you team up? You sound like the perfect, you know, candidate for my pirate crew. We're looking to shake up the world, and not looking at many options. He ain't trying to go to Impel Down. So Thomas is like, all right, I'm not really gonna take many orders. Daniel's like, I'm not trying to give them, just as long as we have a bond of loyalty. He's like, cool, let's do this thing. And that's how Thomas joins the crew. And move on to the second mate. Because first mate, although this isn't a numerous pirate crew, it has reasons for being such, because the important missions have to do, and you still need a bit of order on the ship. Okay? The second mate is Romanov, epithet the Slayer. This dude is half human, half vampire. He has a massive silver sword, which is, it makes sense if you know about the whole werewolf factor. And he is an armaments hockey specialist. He does have observation hockey, which is fairly good, but he prefers armaments hockey. Okay, this dude's legit. This dude's legit with his swordsmanship. He can clash with some of the best of them. His lifestyle was one of pretty much, I wouldn't call it a bounty hunter, but he would do what he can to provide for himself. His age is fairly unknown. It's just that he's old, and his body, as a vampire, ages very much slower than normal humans, or part vampire, I should say. He originates from the North Blue. I'm talking North Blue. For a long time, he was asleep, and he was awoken, actually, by Daniel and his crew. See, he comes from a time past, what he thinks is centuries. He doesn't really recall, because there's a lot of things he's unsure of. He just knows that he woke up into this new age. And him and Daniel have a battle at first, and Daniel respects his skills, he respects his skills, and because of that, they have a mutual bond. And that's how Romanov enters the pirate crew. Moving on, we have the navigator, because you need these kind of officials on the crew. And the navigator is Michael Andrew. Now, Michael is very tall and skinny. His martial arts is kickboxing. He's a kickboxer. More towards defensive, and he specializes in observation hockey. Doesn't really have armaments hockey. It's relatively rudimentary. As a navigator, he was serving on a marine ship. The ship gets attacked by Daniel and his small crew at the time. And the reason Romanov joins is because, first of all, he was dissatisfied with the Marines. He mainly was traveling just to see the world. He didn't like the corruption of the Marines, and it goes back to his childhood, where he saw some not so good things, a lot of bribery, a lot of illicit sexual activity. And so he was gung-ho about joining, especially considering Daniel's like, yo, we need a navigator. Even though you work for the Marines, what do you say? Because also Michael was not an official member of the Marines. More or less, he was kind of sort of held against his will under a certain captain. Now, we move on to Dr. Kurt, yes. Dr. Aaron Bloody Shield. Interesting story behind it. Now, Aaron Shield wears glasses and has a bandana over his mouth. He uses scapular as a weapon. he has legitimate observation hockey. His observation hockey is legit. Like Michael, Armin's hockey isn't too good, but it's okay. It's decent. The thing about Aaron Shield, his bounty ain't up there, and I'll explain what his bounty is later. But he got his bounty pretty much by himself. By the time he meets Daniel, he had a 50 million buried bounty. The thing about it is, he was in paradise, and he did quite a bit of underground dealings. Now, he was an underground doctor, specifically to pirates and other shady businessmen, if you would. And the Marines could not stand that. The Marines and the world government considered him a major threat. His skills were very good, to say the least. Expert surgeon. And he needed protection because he actually, even though he had a low bounty, he was known to be a killer, okay, when need be. And because he was an expert, he actually had a vice admiral, a rear admiral, and a commodore all coming for him. And he was a dead man. He could not fight all that fire. And so Daniel hearing, because of Michael being able to have knowledge of the Marines, able to hijack the frequency of the Din Din Mushin. And so Daniel heard about this, and he's like, he comes to his aid, and he offers him a position on the ship. He says, while we don't need a doctor at this moment, we will need a medic when it comes to battles, when we fight on the sea, as well as in future battles on land. And looking at very limited options, it made perfect sense to join a group of strong individuals, specifically with the promise of they will become one, if not the most powerful private crew on the seas. Now, moving on to the shipwreck, Provante. He uses a nail gun and a long shafted hammer, obviously because of his trade. Now, Provante hails from the South, and what happened was he came to Paradise looking for work because the Marines, what happened was his home island was a pretty, an important shipyard in the South Blue, but the Marines took over the island and wanted mass production. Provante went down for helping out mass production Marines because he knew once the Marines did this, it would leave them high and dry, and their economy would be shot. So Provante took a small vessel and he sailed to Paradise and almost died in the process on a few occasions. And with a wrecked ship, low food and low water, he was pretty much screwed. Daniel comes across him, not Daniel, but they notice, the crew notices this ship, and they see his equipment is like, yo, you want safe passage, safe voyage, and we need someone of your skill set. Why don't you join us? He's like, yo, I'm down with that, and I don't mind striking a blow against the Marines. So that's how they pick up shipwreck Provante. Now onward to the cook, Jacques Poole, with an E. Jacques Poole. He uses multiple kitchen knives and that. Now, this guy here, he takes pride in what he does, but he's a little bit crazy to say the least. Something's wrong with him upstairs. He can cook, but he's ready to cut a fool in his leg. He gets down. His skills in the kitchen are masterful, especially when it comes to filleting and all those sorts of things. He can fix food up in a relatively short amount of time. They found him at a tavern, a bar, And then in the tavern on an island, the kind of low rundown, they saw his skills and like, yo, how about come join us? The pay would be better, and we need to go. And he's like, yo, to get out of here, I'll do anything reasonable. And so Provante joins. And now, until the last of the actual, more or less, officers, you could say, helmsman, Meros, the epithet, the Destroyer. Now, Meros is the user of the Mizu no Mi. It's the Logia, which is the water Logia, devil fruit, okay? Which a lot of people get misconstrued and don't understand it. The Mizu no Mi, it doesn't have to deal with salt water. It's fresh water, and he is water itself. So, just like a Logia, if you know One Piece, you know the Logia abilities. Mizu no Mi is one of the most devastating abilities. It allows for some of the most devastating abilities. He's a veteran pirate, and he uses Shiva's sword. He's a Shiva swordsman, meaning it's 8 sword style, but not like Hachi, the fishman. No, he has 8 blades, and not like Killer Bee from Naruto. He literally has 8 different blades he can use in so many different facets. It's Nitoryu enhanced. Let's just put it that way. 2 sword style enhanced. Okay. So this dude, why would a veteran pirate follow, this seeming rook, this new, by this time, Daniel had been sailing the seas, and then had entered into the New World. And so the crew had got a reputation for fighting and whatnot. And pretty much this is what happens. It's a Davy back fight. It's a serious Davy back fight. It is pretty brutal, to say the least. And Daniel's crew wins. And so, as payment, he's allowed to take recruitment from those who are left living. And he sees the potential, and they also need the helmsman. So, Meros joins the crew. Now onward, move to an assassin. Alvaro, epithet the Rogue. Alvaro the Rogue. She, the first of 3 females on the crew. She's a female ninja, master of ninjutsu. Does shady operations for Captain Barrow. Now the thing about Alvaro is she comes from a very secretive clan in the West Blue. She traveled to the New World when she was age of 19, looking for opportunities at better work, because the West Blue was not the best place for her, and also it was a tumultuous time period. She found quite a big deal, but it often came up under problems with the Don Quixote family's operations, okay, as well as with Big Mama, Charlotte Linley, Yamako Big Mama. And so she made quite a bit of reputation. And she also took out some royal figures and governmental officials. So she was being hunted down severely. She comes across the crew while she was on the run at a specific time, and she heard about them quite a bit in recent months. So she's like, yo, this is the kind of crew I need to be on. Not only can they provide protection, but I can offer a great service. And along the way, she does become quite great friends, and a bit romantically interested in the captain, to say the least. Now, moving on. So that's her loyalties, without question. Moving on, we got a gunslinger, Mallory Kay. second or third females. She's a female outlaw who dual wields pistols. So you know her armament hockey's about that life. Her observation hockey's about that life as well. She doesn't have quite as good an observation hockey as Thomas, but it's nothing to sneeze at. And her armament hockey even rivals that of the captain and first mate. She can hit hard and hit heavy. She was an old friend and associate of in business of Averill, and Averill gives her a call and is like, "Yo, come join us." How she got done? She has a history of, while not assassinating, just fighting. She's fighting much of her life. She learned marksmanship at a young age. She's been hunting ever since she was young, and it just seemed natural for her to fight. She doesn't just shoot recklessly, but she doesn't take threats to honor without retribution. So you come across those who are innocent, you will pay. You will pay. So that involve killing certain government officials, certain higher-ups in the Marine, certain Marine officials. So she has gotten a reputation. Next up is the giant Thorson, epithet the Invincible. Now Thorson, he does obviously originate from Elbaf. Okay, he's an expert with dual-edged axe. Axe got two, pretty much two blades. You know those kind of broad axes. Hopefully, and he has an armadillo devil fruit, so he's his own user. Okay, this dude's durability is too much. This dude's durability is the greatest of the crew. Okay, this dude's a bloody tank. It would take so much to take this dude down. Added to his immense strength from years of combat, and I mean years of combat. This dude is a veteran, a New World veteran to the T. Okay, this dude has fought some of the most well-known, notorious in the New World. He's fought some level 6ers. Okay, he has never lost a battle. This dude's taken down some of whoever the Marines have sent his way. It got to a point to where Fleet Admiral Sengoku asked Vice Admiral Garp, Monkey D. Garp, why don't you go after him? And Garp retorts and laughs at him and says, stop sending Marines. It's not like he's a pirate. Anyone who's not Vice Admiral or above shouldn't even try to mess with this guy. That's how fearsome of a reputation he has. So, going around and fighting on a rocky, small island, if you want to call it that, is where he was chilling for quite a while. Because he had a severe battle a few months back with a Marine battleship. In comes nearby Daniel and the crew, and he was smart enough not to, go after the crew, because he had heard stories about this uprising crew threatening the New World, and so he didn't want to walk recklessly. He sends out a message, he signals for them to come. They stop on by, and Daniel, along with first mate, second mate, and the sniper, all go to talk to him. And he's like, I'm not trying to attack you. And Thomas, the sniper, says, it'd be foolhardy. It'd be foolish for you to try to take on all of us. We'll kill you in the process. He's like, I understand that. I just want to duel the man with the cane. And so Daniel's like, alright, what's the deal? He said, the giant says, if you win, obviously I join your crew. But if I win and I've never lost, you'll die in the process. And I was like, cool. It's been and Hashim's like, yo, it's been a while since you've done some training, hasn't it? I was like, yeah, definitely. So Daniel and the giant clash. It's a good battle, but Daniel does overwhelm even the strength of the giant with some crazy techniques and some moves he hadn't seen before, thanks to Hollow Hollow. Some kicks in there as well, and the giant has to admit defeat for the first time in his life. So a powerful ally is made, to say this. Next up is the Fishman Shunto, epithet the Grandmaster. Now Shunto is the first Grandmaster of Fishman Karate. Now Fishman Karate had been around Fishman Island for who knows how long. The thing about it is, Shunto is 205 years old. Shunto, I will explain his his connection to Jinbei. About 105 years before the present time, there was an incident that happened on Fishman Island. The world government recognized the potential threat of Fishman Karate, so they sent in the predecessors of the organization now known as Cypher Corp. And these agents took out the 16 top Fishman Karate users on Fishman Island. Only 2 masters were left. It is Shunto, who was the top user, you could say like a 10th Fishman Karate user, as well as his star student. Fortunately, the star student was off the island in the South Blue training in this martial arts school where it was a bunch of different martial arts styles came. He was learning, in that process. Shunto sent him a message to stay away because he caught wind of something going on the island, something very wrong. And he caught when he said, stay away a while. Now that student would eventually become Jinbei's master, okay? His sensei. As well as the reviver of Fishman Karate after 25 years. So, Shunto, in an effort, he does fight off the Marines, and in an effort not to make sure, vice admirals, 5 or so vice admirals will come and destroy Fishman Island, he voluntarily exiles himself from Fishman Island. And so he began on the warpath against the Marines and the world government, as well as any pirates who threatened him. And the admiral, because there was only one admiral at the time, this was far long before the golden age of pirates and the era of large piracy, large-scale piracy, I should say. So Shunto goes out, and he has a reputation as the Grand Master of Fishman Karate, and he's known to be very dangerous. He, in fact, killed 2 vice admirals during his time. Now, the thing about it, he was the first to gain his bounty, which I'll say later. And it was the highest bounty that had been recorded up till that point. The thing it is, Shunto, after a while, with about 60 or so years from the present time, he kind of went into myth. He became a legend. He stopped. The Marines couldn't figure out, but they were just glad he did. He was waiting to see what of the younger generation could show up. Who could fulfill this fate? He didn't want to have to do it. He was an old timer. And the reason he could stay alive so long is because of his mastery of Fishman Karate allowed for water to slow the aging of his body, so that while he was maybe at that 100, 800, and about 40 years or so old, he could pretty much, 140, 45, he pretty much was the body of, let's say, a 40-year-old man. He waited, and along came Roger. He thought Roger would be able to do, and then he heard about Roger's execution. He had promised with the one known as Red Hand and the one known as Hawkeyes. Hawkeyes becomes a Shichibukai, a warlord, and Red Hair and the other Yonko down on the rise. He had great promise, Whitebeard, Big Mem, Kaido, 100 of these guys. But all these Yonko became political figures and rulers, and he's like, yo, what's going on? And so he was waiting to see, is there any hope left? Then he hears about this young upstart with the epithet known as Dangerous. That very much intrigued him, and he very much would like to meet him. Eventually he would hear about Mugiwara, about Straw Hat Luffy, and then definitely put a smile on his face that now you had two pirates who may fulfill what he wanted. He also had heard about Dragon and whatnot, but he knew the Revolutionary Army would take too long. So he resided on Raiju for a few years, for several reasons. And as the crew shows up at Raiju, he comes out and meets them, and they have a discussion. Him, Edward Daniel, once again, his top four, and they go talk to him. And he's like, for many I may be a legend, a myth. And Ashim knows him or suspects that he knows him. Once again, Thomas is skeptical. But he said, something about me is known. And Ashim says he has a unique style. With one wave of his hand, he's able to split the entire sea. And with it back, it comes back into place. And then he says, step back. And they all do. And then an orb emits from him. And then up comes an entire wall of water out of nowhere because of his control of the atmosphere. And they're like, yeah, this is sweet. Daniel asks him to join his crew. He's like, I've been waiting for you. I've been hearing about you. And then he explains his history. So you have that. Coming up on the last two members, we have a witch, a soul. She is, this is the third and final female member, Brooke Ash, with the epithet Dark Maiden. She's a witch, as I mentioned, the master of sorcery. Okay? Brooke got a reputation, because, I tell you, man, she's kind of paranoid, let's just put it that way, and because of various events that happen in her life. And Brooke, she learns, she gets very deep into the dark arts, but she recognizes of how much a toll it was taking on her mind. So she kind of dialed back, but she retained the knowledge that she gained. And whenever anybody would cross her, she would go mad, heavy at it. This went on for a while, and of course, troubles happen in increasing amounts as usually the Marines go in, but she would use her clairvoyance, her invisibility, and different skills that she had and never was caught. The thing is, the crew was on an island one time, and she was struck by Thomas. She liked him. She was attracted to him, and so she began to talk, and they had a good conversation. And she let she was who she was. And he's like, this is interesting. He introduced himself. And he's like, Why don't we go talk to the captain? And the captain's like, of course, why not? Join us. You can use someone like you and your skills, and especially since you kicked it off so well with the sniping. And last but certainly not least, Sky Island Murdo, known by his epithet Avenger. Now this dude, man, this dude rocking mad heavy jump. He's a veteran of Sky Warfare. We're talking about Sky Island's Mode, the Axe Dial, Breath Dial, Flame Dial, Impact Dial, Jet Dial, Milky Dial, Reject Dial, Water Dial, and Thunder Dial. This dude just is raw. He's a one-man army. He's a war machine to say the least, okay? This dude is a massive threat to anyone. It doesn't matter who you are. This dude joined, he's known as the Avenger because of what happened to his family. His entire family was murdered. His little sister was raped and murdered. He doesn't know his mother was kidnapped. So, okay, it's not his entire family. His mother was kidnapped. We found out later she was raped and murdered. So, yeah, he went after her. And from that point on, he turned into a killer, okay? And he descends into the New World and wreaks havoc. He hears about Dangerous Daniel. And so he sets sail to find us. They have a conversation. He likes him and decides to join his crew. And Daniel's acquainted to have it. He's very happy with having it. Now, after all this time, the crew's assembled. They do battle. They do quite a few sea battles and whatnot. Eventually, Daniel decides to send out a message to Red-Haired Shanks. He sends his first mate, he sends the sniper, he sends the Grandmaster, the fisherman, Shunto, to meet up with Ben Beckman, who brings out several members. Ben Beckman returns with the message to Shanks, and messages, meet me, have some important business to talk to. So Shanks meets up with him and they go individually to this island and have a discussion. And Shanks asks what he wants. And Daniel tells him, look, Red Hair, I respect you. I respect your position in the world. I respect how you get down. I also hear of your relationship with the one on the Straw Hat Monkey D. Roof. Shanks is like, okay, what is it that you want? He said, I would like for you to have an alliance with him. Shanks like, alright, what do we, talking about the Red-Haired Pirates, gain from an alliance? He said, first of all, I plan to go to war with the Yonko. I plan to do battle first with their allies and eventually with the Yonko himself. Big Man has been sitting too comfortably and wreaking havoc for too long. Kaido is building up an army as well as Blackbeard. And he's like, and you know how dangerous Blackbeard is. Shanks is like, yes, I'm well aware of how big a threat Teach is. Daniel's like, look, I don't ever want to have to fight you unless it's necessary. But we will go to war if need be. And if we go to war, I cannot guarantee that you or any of your crew come out of it alive. Shanks is like, those are big words. Daniel's like, yeah, I can promise that my king will never cross against your sword. And yes, I can back up my words. The Conqueror's Haki is both unleash those in the ships his sense. Ben Beckman about ready to pull his trigger Sheems was about ready to use his bow, but then they since he dialed down. Shanks is like, alright, good man, good man. Fine, I agree to your terms. But what do we get in it? I will always be ready to protect you. You can call on me and recruit anytime to help fight by your side and help take care of the situation. Jason's like, cool. Now, with all that being said, and yes, they do go after various things against the Yonko. This is a Yonko level fruit, no doubt. Now I talked about their bounties. As the captain, Daniel, his bounty is 600 million berries. The first mate, 400 million berries. The sniper, 375 million berries. The second mate, 325 million berries. The navigator, 125 million berries. The doctor, 75 million berries. Shipwright, 90 million berries. Cook, 100 million berries. Helmsman, 300 million berries. Assassin, 250 million berries. Gunslinger, 150 million berries. Giant, 275 million berries. Fisherman, 300 million berries. Remember I talked about he was the first Sky Islander, 275 million berries. Overall crew bounty is worth 3.94 million berries. 3.94 billion berries, excuse me. Yeah, this crew's legit, y'all. I know it's a long video, but there was a lot to say. Thank y'all for tuning in, and unexpected one, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts and how would your pirate crew be. And until next time, have a beautiful day, beautiful night. Peace.